Can't hear you. Oh, you're muted. Mitch is you're muted.
We know that.
Yelling, it's like yelling at the deaf person.
I just saw that.
Yeah, we'll just have her ask for you.
Okay, everybody, quiet down. We're going to cover the announcement. Thank you. Okay, first of all, thank you and welcome to tonight's meeting. We are having a great program on Angraecums tonight from Alan Koch. But we're going to start off first with announcements. First off, thank you to the new members.
Are any of them here?
Or do we have any new members here? Hi, yes. Hi, you can introduce yourselves if you want. Hi. Okay, thank you. Welcome.
I'm Justin. Hi.
Hi, Jason. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Mark.
Nice to meet you. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Gabriel online. Gabriel, you want to say hi?
Gabriel, if you're here, you want to say hi. If you can, unmute yourself, please. Thank you.
Hi, hello, my name's Gabriel. Nice to kind of meet all of you. Hope to be there in person in the future. Oh, I'm doing laundry, so that's why my video is not on.
Okay. The next thing is POE 2024 is the design competition is already open. If you didn't see it in the newsletter, if you'd like to submit the theme, an idea, pitch an idea for the theme next year, we'd be more than happy to hear it. The winner does get a free ticket, right?
Yeah, so there's 2 free
Right to do the
weekend, including tonight.
until the gala.
And the meeting is this Monday when we decide. All members can come to any board or show committee meeting, online or in person. This is all hosted at our house.
Yeah.
So all the info is there and it's on the website.
Yes.
But you gotta vote by.
We got to submit your submit.
Yeah, submit your ideas on the day before so we can vote on it.
So we can vote on it. Yes, and then there's member pre-sales, resources. Next month's speaker will be Ben Oliveros from Hawaii. He is one of the premier breeders of species and also some standard cats and cat lids and all kinds. And he is doing a fantastic discount for members, 40% off for anyone that pre-sales. That is wholesale rate, people. So if you want some fantastic cats, contact Ben. And then shipping's included, and you don't have to pay Hawaiian shipping. Which
So he is coming.
he is coming in person. The Big Island. And then also through Mary Garrettson, I'm not gonna learn. Thank you. Is offering, they also have their offering list for this year available for a lot of the unique species that we don't see that often, a lot of the Asian species. Yes.
Mary's in New Guinea currently, so she won't be available for contact for probably 2 more weeks, I think.
Thank you, Ron.
The 18th, I think of September is the last day of the border. And then she'll take care of it.
Ron, if you want to give me an alternative contact and we'll share.
It's very
Take care. Okay.
So,
And-
I'm gonna have the I have a list on my computer, so if someone wanted to contact me, I can. forward it
Yeah,
to them.
and we have the list on the newsletter.
Yeah, good.
And then, of course, judging happening tonight. If anyone wanted their plants being judged, you can still enter. Sacramento is tomorrow. If you want more information, Alan can give you some more information, but also contact Lynn, who's also in the audience today, but I think she's back with judging. Oh, you're over there. Yes. Finally is in 2 weeks. And again, our standard Join Orchid Digest, the premium orchid magazine, we are still offering that promotion. And then I'll do our speaker. Tonight's speaker is Alan Koch. He'll be speaking on to us on the Angraecum tribe, which are African, he'll tell you more about African vandaceous orchids. Alan has been growing orchids for 30 plus years now. And 30 plus years, and has a large greenhouse in Lincoln, Gold Country Orchids, and has been a proud member of the, and is a part of the Serena, Nevada Judging Center, and has been an active member of the AOS, serving the boards and trustees. And Alan shows up to many of our shows, so many of you may recognize him. Some of our newer members will see him at next year's POE. He's a fantastic vendor, a lot of variety of plants. So with that, I'll give the show over to Alan.
Yeah, I started growing orchids in 1969, so if you do the math, it's a lot more than 30 years.
I already felt bad about.
My aunt gave me 3 cymbidiums. Unfortunately, my aunt had moved from Manhattan Beach, California, beautiful coastal community, to Banning in the desert. And in 3 years, her 250 cymbidiums went down to 3 because of 119 degrees down to 17 degrees. They were sandblasted, abused. I had those plants for 30 years until I finally threw them out because they never flowered. Just because somebody gives you a gift and they're special, don't be afraid to throw them out. So are you going to advance the slides for me?
I can do that.
So next slide. So I always talk culture because I'm uncultured. Growing up in Leggett, California, where Highway 1 meets 101, you know, we were wild. Then those people from San Francisco came up, you know, in the 60s with all those drugs. My high school class of 17 students, there are now 3 of us left alive. Drugs, alcohol. When you live in Leggett, there's not a lot to do. Anyway, what about media? I don't care. Use what's appropriate for you. But notice those pots. All of those pots have really good drainage. One of the things about Angraecums is they actually grow better mounted than in a pot. A lot of you don't want to mount plants because lack of humidity and you have a hard time in the home. I make this really simple terrarium. I buy a liter can or bottle of Koch. I put rock in the bottle. I drill a hole so the water will stay below the rock. And I cut the top off and I set the mounted plant down in there. Great cheap terrarium for growing orchids on a mountain in the home. Next.
We cut some of the lights so we can see the slides better. Yeah.
Jeff, would you hit a couple of lights, please? Thank you, Jeff. What about fertilizer? Yes, we fertilize the orchids. It's kind of like if you're a parent. Do you feed your kids? Yeah, your orchids are your kids. Feed them. Now, I don't care, use a balanced fertilizer. If you've got good quality water, one of the best fertilizers you can use is MSU, Michigan State University. I always give a warning to people though. It's hygroscopic. So if you leave the package open, it goes to gel because it draws water in. How many of you are members of the AOS? Okay, then you've seen those articles by Sue Bottom from Florida, St. Augustine Orchid Society. Great writer, great articles. I got her hooked on MSU. I didn't warn her about it being hygroscopic. I went a month later and there's stains all over the garage floor. The next 6 months later, I'm visiting again. Her husband had to paint the garage floor. She didn't like the tie-dye. Next. So this is just a fancy chart telling you about nutrition. It all boils down to epiphytic plants really need to be fertilized in an acidic formulation, or they're not able to pick up the nutrients. For those of you who are scientific of mind, St. Augustine's website has great articles by Bill Argo on water quality and absorption of minerals, and it'll tell you that you need to be acidic to get those nutrients picked up by an orchid. All municipal water in the state of California is delivered at the basic level. That's because the fact that so many homes have lead solder and copper pipes. And so if you don't send it out at basic, you get lead, and we know we don't want lead. So we're gonna need to change the slides, or why don't you let me change the slide?
I'll let you change the slide.
Just- Oh, I can go down to my knees, I'm.
Why don't you just sit in a chair there?
No, I can do this. So you can sit down there. Anyway, watering's the most important thing you do. When you water your plants, if you just water it once, you're watering the surface. Water it 3 times. So go through, water, come back, water again, and the 3rd time you're leaching salt buildup out of the plants. Salt is the enemy of all orchid roots. Orchid roots don't like salt buildup. And it's kind of like they don't like ice cubes. You know, I've never seen a parrot drop an ice cube on a plant in the jungle. So, you know, water them well. You know, when I was going to UCLA to go to grad school, I had a milk can water shower head. And I would rotate my orchids into the shower, and it was like rain coming through the media to leach it out. And you could see a spurt of growth every time you'd leach those plants. So Daniel here is fertilizing, actually, because those white sprinkler heads coming up is how we water. Now we'll pour a ton of water through the plants. We always water, get the plants turgid before we fertilize, and that way you don't burn the root tips. Root tips are everything. Don't go so fast.
Good help, sir.
I know. It's like, you know, you just have to take what you get. The longer the root tip, the more active the growth. The shorter the root tip, the less active the growth. So this is Dendrophylax frunalis. It's one of the leafless orchids. So roots are really super important on this plant, because if you don't have roots, you don't have a plant. But in the middle of the summer, the root tips can get up to 3/4 to 1 inch long. But right now, we're starting to shorten the day length. They're down to about 1/2 inch. In 2 more months, they'll be down to only about 1/8 of an inch, telling you back off on the fertilizer. Roots can tell you how much to fertilize, when to fertilize more often, and they're telling you how to grow your plants. So the longer the root, the more fertilizer you need to give them. Next. Here we have one of my favorite orchids in the Angraecums alliances, Pedangus dactyloceras, just rolled off the tongue. I bought it just for the name. I was in Santa Barbara Orchid Society in 1973, and James Rose was working there at the time from Cal Orchids, and James says, "You've got to have this plant. You'll love the name." What is it? Pedangus dactyloceras. And so I bought it at an overinflated price. But what did I know? Anyway, here it's in a clear pot. It's in a clear pot because it photosynthesizes from its roots. All Angraecum alliance plants photosynthesize from their roots. Every one of them. So if you have an African species in the Angraecum alliance, they photosynthesize from their roots. You got nice root tips there. And look at the potting medium. Wine corks. Now, when I'm out of state in California, I say, now the reason I showed you this slide with wine corks is to promote the California wine industry. Please buy more California wine. Pull the next slide up. Look at the roots. Any root, when you water, it turns green, it has chlorophyll, so they photosynthesize from the corks. Those are really cheap corks, those are synthetic corks, they're wrapped together. I prefer to use really good quality corks, my orchids prefer it, but you know, you can get by with the synthetic.
But you only drink cheap wines, you get cheap cooks.
No, those were given to me by a German friend that was we had a home. No, actually, Earl, he brings me bags of 10,000 wine corks at a time because corks can only be used for 2 years. If they go past 2 years, they dry up too much, they can't use them. So if they haven't sold them, I get them for free. Okay, next slide. This is Banana dactylocera showing a nice photo of this plant, yes. Yeah,
So if you use ones that have been in a bottle of wine,
darn right, it's got great
fine.
some cytokines.
You don't have to.
Yeah, there's all kinds of great elements on it. Yeah, come on. And your plant won't get drunk, they don't get affected by alcohol. Anyway, Banana dactylocera there, great little species. That's only about a 7 by 7 inch plant. And that's in a 3-inch pot. Yeah, I sold that plant, somebody got it awarded. Next. So, they love to be mounted. And even in a greenhouse, I find that they get established so much faster if I drop the mount down into like that little pot, clear plastic pot there, because it holds just a little extra humidity around the plant and the roots catch on faster. But notice the potting media. This is the New Zealand sky moss. This particular species wants to dry between watering. So instead of using New Zealand skyden, which holds too much moisture, I use what we call gorilla hair, coconut fiber. And it dries out really quick. And the nice thing about gorilla hair is that it lasts longer. It doesn't break down. It'll last up to 15, 20 years. Next. Some of the plants want to dry out so fast that we just throw a little Spanish moss on the bottom of the plant when we bring them out of flask, and we just spread them out there. This is an Angraecums punctata, little small thing. The plants will flower with a 1-inch plant with a 1-inch flower. Now, if you've got too many plants and you don't have room, you got room for punctata. Next. The Angraecums, as a group, they like lower light, more like Phalaenopsis. They bloom young, they get bigger and better and more floriferous as they develop, but they'll start blooming. In fact, we flowered Angraecums punctata and Angraecums luteolata in the flask. So they'll bloom very, very young. This is one of my favorites, Angraecums luteolata, just a flat of them. Roy Tokunaga, my good friend from Hawaii, once we were at Tom Perlitti's greenhouse, and all those beautiful Dendrobium cuthbertii, and Roy looked at me and said, you know, Alan, the way you grow luteolata, you should do a wall like that, like Tom has the cuthbertii when you walk in.
Yeah.
I said, boring, they're all white with a red lip. The cuthbertii have all kinds of different colors. But look at that. Those are all in little plum pots in bloom. Next. So, oops, go back. So this is the plant right there on the wall that I got from Fred Hillerman of the Angraecum house in 1973 at the San Gabriel Orchid Society meeting when I went down to go to UCLA to grad school. Boy, that was forward. And Fred looked at me and he said, that plant will be dead in 9 years. I still have it to this day. Can we go back?
Yes. It's scrolled. I have no idea why.
Okay. Next. This is line bred Angraecums luteolata. We've taken these through 9 generations of breeding. We got to where we can flower the majority of the crops 1 year out of class. And so fuller flowers, longer inflorescences, line bred for ease of growth. Think of them as a phalaenopsis for light, but a cattleya for watering. They want to dry between watering. Fred Hillerman used to come to my nursery and buy Arangus luteolva from me to put on his catalog. And I realized why once I read his book. His book said in the Arangus book, water every other day, miss daily. I water them once a week and I never miss them. And I'm very successful with them. And now I know why he thought they would die in 9 years. Next. Arangus biloba, this is Arangus biloba Big Ben. It's a weed. There's 2 pieces of it back for sale. It just explodes. It grows so well. It's just one of the best plants. It stays small. And once again, phalaenopsis, but cattleya watering, dry between watering, but low light. Takes low humidity even. So it's really a bulletproof plant. Next. Citrata, another one, low light, but dry-ish between waterings. It doesn't like to go bone dry. It comes from a wetter area of Africa, grows like a weed. 2 years after I took this picture, next. It throws basal cacace readily. This now had like 9 basal cacace on it, and it could throw up to 3 to 4 flower spikes per growth. So great plant, only takes up about 4 inches of room in the greenhouse or windowsill. Next, Arangus hyaloides. Probably the first plant I killed in the Angraecum line because it bloomed itself to death. They'll throw so many flower spikes that it literally just taxes the plant too much and there's no way to keep it alive. And so what we've started doing is cutting half the spikes on our mature plants once they start to flower well. And we find that now we don't lose them. Next. That's an example of a plant on a cork mount and half of its flower spikes were removed. So it's still pretty showy. And that's about 4-inch ball. So it is a true miniature. Next. Modesta, the modest Arangus, great plant, gets this little kind of coppery tone to the flowers. See, they're not all just white, but a lot of them are. But here it is, hanging up, and you notice that that's in light greenhouse. It's the opposite of what most of the Arangus are. This one's cattleya light, and to have phalaenopsis water. It likes to be on the moist side, doesn't like to go totally dry. And so we hang that up above the cattleya so it's brighter light, and then we actually have to water it twice a week. Next. Arangus distincta, another one with coppery color, growing in a basket. The roots will actually cover the basket. They flatten themselves out, and they get this silvery and red hues that are cast when the sun hits it, and it sparkles. So the roots actually are kind of attractive too on the distincta. Next. And there's color. Arangus harriotiana. But they're not big flowers. They're only about 3/8 of an inch, but you get a ton of them. They do best mounted. This is on a cork mount. I think this is probably, it's such a good photograph. It's probably an award photograph from Ramon de los Santos, our photographer in our judging center, because it looks better than my photography. Next. Arangus kochiana. Well, this is what we use to pull the wine corks out of the bottles. See the spurs, how they look like a corkscrew? They're about 6-inch long corkscrew-like spurs on this. And this is a fairly large plant. It'll get about an 8-inch leaf span on it. Very salt sensitive. When we grow them in pots, because we have hard water in Lincoln, I kill them within about 4 years. But mounted, I can keep them alive forever. And a mounted plant, it's easier to reach the salt buildup out of the root system than a plant in the pot. So we found that once we started mounting them like this one's mounted, it thrives. And I couldn't believe it when Florida awarded a plant with 3 inflorescences, a cultural merit award. Going, gee whiz, it's not that hard to flower, guys. Next. Large flowered tiny plant. Does anybody know the species or free plant?
That's yours.
What?
That's yours.
You got a free plant. Yes, it is. I knew Ron would know right away. Ron knew. But he was being nice.
That's kind of a given.
Ron raised his hand right away. He goes, I know what that is. This will throw flowers as big as the plant. And I've got, last year at the Sacramento show, I had a 3-inch fastuosa with 6 spikes, 3 and 4 flowers per inflorescence in a 3-inch pot. I mean, it's really impressive for the size of the plant. And I love that plant because it's really easy to flower.
So there's not many hybrids known of any Angraecums. Judy got one from Madagascar from a order from there. It's a natural hybrid of Fastios by Modesta or Articulata. They grow together where the range overlaps. And she's got quite a rare natural hybrid. It's very cool.
Oh, that would be cool.
Or show it to me when you.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, that's cool. Well, it's kind of like, with Cali Intermediate and Lergizia, they overlap in Brazil. And Clasiana, natural hybrid. But they're not cool. Yes. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? Just beautiful display. And they are fragrant at night. Next. That's the nice thing about the Arangus and the Angraecum. You're at work during the day, you come home and they're fragrant at night when you're at home. Wow, what a novelty. Next, oh, wait. This is the Fastuosa hybrid. Winter Dove is an Articulata hybrid with Fastuosa, back on the Fastuosa. So whereas Fastuosa has a very small inflorescence, the Articulata gives you a beautiful long inflorescence. And they'll throw up to 10 flowers on an inflorescence. And still, Articulata is a good sized plant. It is a miniature with large inflorescence.
Alan, do you
Yeah.
have any of those?
What?
Do you have any of those?
I've killed 7.
That would be a no.
You know what? I do have 3, but I got a bunch from Hoosier Orchids when they went out of business. And I sold almost all of them. I bought all they had and I kept a few. And the only problem is if there is a mealybug in 20 miles, it finds that plant. I mean, it is like the mealybug magnet of the world. It's kind of like, you want to find out if you've got mites, put a capsicum in your greenhouse. Anyway, yeah, that's what killed one of them was mealybugs. Next. Many Angraecums also work that aren't too big. I mean, sesquipedale and, get this tall. Not really great. Next. So one of my favorites is the stitchum. It's a small plant. You can actually take leaf cuttings and start them in sphagnum moss. They're fairly easy. This one's on a mount. The stitchum will bloom off and on in my nursery 3-4 times a year, and then it gets this beautiful flush. And
you mean stem cutting?
yeah, it'll start roots at the base of the leaves. What you do is you pull a few of the leaves off at the base and put that down in sphagnum moss and keep it more like Phalaenopsis. Next. And it can grow pretty well. This is the flush. And Roy Tokunaga, my friend from Hawaii, once again came into my nursery and says, "What are you doing with that? You need to divide that up and sell it." And I did. Next. That's a friend of mine's plant. Next. And Angraecum compactum. These are expensive. You know why? It's the hardest plant to bring out a flask in the world, I think. They sit there, you bring them out a flask, they look at you, and after about 3 years, they start to grow. And then after another 3 years, they're finally getting ready to flower. And about a year more, then they start flowering. But you've lost half of them before you get them to that point. But once you get them to blooming size, they're super easy to grow. I mean, once you get them established, they're a weed. The problem is getting them to that point. But they're really nice because they have these beautiful fragrant flowers, long lasting, and once they're this size, easy to bloom. Next, Dederite. Dederite is one of the bulletproof ones. Nice and easy to grow, stays small. The ones I brought have already flowered, so they're all blooming size. That's the nice thing. And this is another one of those that if you mount it, the roots will flatten out on the mount and get that silver red hue and sparkle in the sun. Really cool. Next. Equitons, member of a relative of Dederite, has a slightly larger flower with a smaller plant than Dederite. A little harder to grow because it's salt sensitive, doesn't like any salt buildup. So after we fertilize these, we flush them with plain water to get the salt buildup out of the plants. Next. Elephantinum, also related to Dederite, same thing. See that yellow leaf? I'm getting salt buildup. So what I did is I pulled that leaf off, I took it to the sink, and I let water drip on that plant for an hour. And I knew that was gonna flush the salt out of that media, out of the roots, and I kept it alive that way. Next. Dionys. Dionys is a plant that grows exactly like Phalaenopsis. You grow Phalaenopsis well, you'll grow Dionys well. It is a little more salt sensitive than Phalaenopsis, so it's a good thing to flush the fertilizer salts out of it, because if you don't, you'll get fewer flowers. If you flush the salts, like after you fertilize, come back 25 minutes, use rainwater, good quality water, flush the salt buildup out, you can get this kind of flowering every time. Next. Yeah.
So one question would be, are they intermediate or would be full blower, and the second one?
That's a warm grower, intermediate. Yeah, it'd be fine. Think of Phalaenopsis, same temperature as Phalaenopsis. Yeah.
And then the of them are.
Blooming seasons, I get twice a year blooms because we've been line breeding them, so we've been selecting for vigor. So we get a spring and a fall bloom.
Are they mostly spring, fall, flowers?
Spring, fall, spring, fall. And see another one that's not just white. This is pigweed. And it's a miniature. The flower though is about 1.5 inches. And it's very rare, hard to find. I only have one plant, so don't ask for it, but you don't get it. Yeah, have you seen it around, Ron?
Yeah, Marty had one. Yeah.
Oh, does she?
Oh, she still does. I photographed it, yeah.
Yeah, and it's very salt sensitive, so I've got it mounted so I can reach the salt buildup out of the roots. But it's a beautiful species, really nice to grow. Next. Now, this is Sept variety Fossili. There's a movement to make it its own species. Probably won't work. But this was a plant I brought down to Judging to this room right over there about 30 years ago from Fred Hillerman. And it got an AM AOS. And this plant is only 18 inches tall, which sounds like it's big, but when you consider Sesquipedale can be 3-4 feet, this is a 25-year-old plant, totally matured and blooming for 20+ years. And so it stays compact. So if you're going to deal with that big, beautiful Darwin's orchid, get the Fossili form. Next. White emblem, which is a Magdalena Sesquipedale hybrid. Magdalena brings down the size, or no, it's not. This is compactum by Magdalena. I'm sorry. It's a hybrid I made. I forgot what I made of it. It happens at 71. And now Dennis Olivas is my age too.
It was your point.
Anyway, the compactum brought down, and remember I said compactum's the hardest plant to grow out of glass. This was easy to grow. It was a weed, hybrid vigor. It overpowered the compactum. Those are 4.5-inch flowers on a miniature plant. Next,
That's compactum with magdalenia, is that what you said?
what's that?
Magdalenia? The cross.
Magdalena by compactum. And there's 2 Angraecums. One well, there's 3, yeah, well, isn't that debatable? Oh, it's not, it's valid, okay. This is Monticola. Monticola means the mountain form. Philippinense comes down from low elevation. So which one should you grow in San Francisco? Monticola. Also, Monticola is fragrant, Philippinense isn't. But Philippinense can put on a beautiful show. Next.
So sorry, oh, can you describe the culture for, the Monticola one?
Monticola, actually, we can grow it in any of our 3 greenhouses. Low light, Phalaenopsis light to full Cattleya light. It grows in our unheated greenhouse and still flowers down to 38 degrees. It grows in the Phalaenopsis greenhouse and flowers with the Phalaenopsis at a low of 62 degrees. So it seems to be pretty much bulletproof. Philippinense in my unheated greenhouse, sayonara.
When is supposed to bloom the Monticola? I had it for 4 years and it was blooming size, I can't get it.
It's salt sensitive. Flush it. You have good quality water.
It's still,
Try giving it more light. Because in the winter time, the trees are semi-deciduous where it's found. So that means more light in the winter. It's kind of like multifloral paths. All the trees that are epiphytic in are semi-deciduous. So the best growers give them more light in the winter. And that's the same thing with Monticola. You want to give it more light. Also, think of monsoonal moisture. Look at the Philippines and look when they're having their monsoons. That's when you want to water more. It's kind of like Delenatii, Tap Delenatii. Those monsoonal seasons really pour the water to it. So you can figure out that any of these species, look where their habitat is, look at the weather reports, you can get annual rainfall, and that tells you when to water, when not to.
you keep them mounted or potted, I tried both, nothing works.
I keep them in a pot with a very loose media, number 3 perlite, medium orchiata, and chunk charcoal. 1 part, 1 part, 1 part. He's gonna say,
I just looked up all my pictures of Monticola, and they seem to bloom between October and January.
okay. Yeah, mine bloom whenever they want. I don't pay attention to it. All I know is there's no peak shows when they're in bloom. That's what I think of. There's no shows. That's why I never remade it. So next, thank you, Ron. So Coffea robusta is probably the most salt sensitive of all the Angraecum alliance. And this one, we definitely grow mounted. And 25 minutes after we fertilize, we come back with plain RO water, flush the plant, so there's no salts on the root, keep the root tips happy. And we've been able to grow this now and keep it alive for 20 years. But before that, we would get about 3 years and then they broke when we were growing in the media because of our hard water. You're blessed because you have better quality water. I have to deal with the water I have. Next. Close up of the flower. Next. One of my favorite ones is Eurycone rothschildiana. It's one of the easier ones to grow. A friend of mine figured out, boy, this is fragrant. It's got a green throat. I'll bet you I can cross this to Phalaenopsis and make a green Phalaenopsis that's fragrant. He did the cross. And one of these days I asked him, I said, how'd you do? He said, well, I finally flowered it. It's light green. It's fragrant. What's the problem? It took me 15 years to flower it. Not commercially valuable, but it by itself is really cool. It looks like a Phalaenopsis. but it has undulated edges on the leaf, and it does best mounted. You'll get an extra flower or two of inflorescence a little longer when you mount it. And let the plant hang down when you mount it. Mount it hanging down. That's the way it grows in the wild. And here it is in the basket, my picture. Next. This is another Eurycnid. This is a bear to grow. Very difficult. I've got 3 plants and they flower about once every 3 years. And I'm trying to get 2 of my plants to bloom at the same time to pollinate, because you can't sell this species. But everybody wants it. If I post one of these plants on Instagram, I get like 30 requests for the species. Sorry, I'm keeping my 3 plants. Next. And Fred Hillerman made this really cool hybrid between Rothschildianum and Galliandra, and he named it Virginia Moulin. And it's fragrant, it has these peach flowers, blooms 2-3 times a year, really easy to flower, really easy to grow. I just wish Galliandra was easy to grow. Next. Okay, can you guess the parentage? Okay, Ron.
I guess Magdalena is one of them.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Is it an Angraecum? It's not an Angraecum, is it?
It's an Angraecum.
Is it an Angraecum? The other parent is an Angraecum?
Yeah.
Is it Sespinelli? Is it
No.
what leaves?
Compacta. This is called Compactalina. It's a hybrid I've made twice. And the plants stay much smaller. The flowers are 4.5 inches. And Ron guessed Magdalena because of the wider segments right away. So Magdalena, what?
Is the road actually green? That's what threw me off.
Oh,
Is it, it's not technically not a green road, but is it?
it is a green throat.
What's the parent, where does it get from the parent?
I have no clue, but I know the cross was compacted by Magdalena. But that was the only one with a green throat. Next, and it won't breed anything. It's sterile. Mysticinium braboni, the roots are everything on the Mysticidii. The Mysticinium get most of their photosynthesis from their roots. And so those roots are about 3 foot long. And when you water that plant, they're bright green.
How big is the plant?
What's that?
How big is the plant?
The plant is 4 inches across. Yeah, 4 inches. So you can see all of that chlorophyll giving you all those inflorescences off a single fan is from that root system. It's just like Phalaenopsis stuff. The roots are everything because they store their energy to flower in the roots. So do Angraecums. Next. That's got, I think, 233 flowers on 23 inflorescences or something like that. Next, I didn't have to count it, student judge that. But see, look at those roots.
How long is the root?
That plant has 3 foot roots now. 3 foot. Next. Mysticinium capense, my favorite orchid in the whole world. And everybody knows the story probably. Yes. Well, Carmen Cole was Ron, you knew Carmen Cole, didn't you? Yeah, she was the Grand Dame of South Florida or South African orchids. She ran all the societies. So if you want to go down and speak, you have to be on good terms with Carmen. And Ivan, her husband, and Carmen and I invited up to come and speak at San Francisco and Sacramento because our clubs had the money to bring them in. And so she called me up, and this is during the days of apartheid, and she said, Alan, is there anything you want? And I said, yeah, I could use Mysticinium capense seed pod, braboni, any kind of miniature Angraecoid you can think of. And so she came up here and spoke, and I had something going on, so somebody drove her up to Sacramento because I couldn't come down and pick her up. And she comes into my greenhouse and she reaches down into her bra and she pulls out the Mysticinium capense seed pod. And she pulled out 6 more seed pods. And,
You can do that, right, though?
oh, she could do that, definitely. She could do that, a little bit voluptuous. Anyway, so she gave the talk and I was gonna drive her back to the airport. They were flying out at night back to South Africa. And I said, what do you want? So we walked around the greenhouse and she picked 6, 7 miniature Cattleyas and I put them in a box and I gave it to her and she says, now, Alan, I know I'm well built, but could you bare root those so I can get them back to South Africa? God bless her. So it's a wonderful species. You know, and what we've got is there's a Mississippian called Venosum, and it's a fall bloomer. And Braboni and Capens are both spring bloomers. So we've crossed them with Venosum to see if we can give Mississippian that'll bloom multiple times during the year. Yes.
Alan, your Mississippians have an awful lot of leaves. Is that,
Well, the Braboni did, but the
well, it
Capens,
has some though, and this has
Yeah.
a lot, and I've not ever, I only seen like 1 or 2 tiny little residual leaves on this.
I do flush them, well, after I've watered and fertilized them. I think that they're probably salt sensitive, although,
Do you think it matters?
not really. No, because remember, their roots are photosynthesizing
Yeah.
so much more. But I also give low amounts of nitrogen to them. I don't, give high nitrogen to the Mississippian. This is Venosum, this is the fall bloomer, and it's a bigger plant, less flowers, but it's a fall bloomer. And once again, photosynthesizing from its roots. Next.
Not bad with that.
So, Arantes grandiflora, the Arantes are known for their really skinny flower stems that are long and sequential blooming. And they're really cool species. This is grandiflora. It's a fairly large plant. There are miniature Arantes that are really cool. Shawnee was showing me a picture tonight of one that has these little tiny flowers, but the plant's tiny too. In a little 4-inch basket, just a beautiful plant with tons of flowers. Next. Microcelius Kochii, one of the leafless orchids from Africa. I like Axillus a little better, it's easier to grow and will flower, but Stoltzii has a showier flower. This is a nice example of what you can do with one of the leafless. Next. The Jumelias, this is Arachnantha, one of the larger ones. There's several smaller species of Jumelia. They're fragrant day and night. That's one of the unusual things about the genus Jumelia is that they're fragrant day and night. And we've been trying to breed it with certain orangas to get day and night fragrance to see if that will come through and also reduce the size of the Jumelias. But Jumelias will throw up a ton of flowers, but we're trying to hit it with things with longer inflorescences because you see the flower spikes down low in the plant. Next. Oniella Aphrodite, you want the most fragrant orchids you could find. I have a 150-foot greenhouse, and I walk in at one end, and the Oniella is at the far end, 150 feet away from the nursery, from my door at the nursery. And I go in there at night, and it's overpowering almost. I smell it right away. It's just a beautiful perfume, though. So it's not like walking into the skunk when it's in the greenhouse. Yeah.
Is that a hybrid?
You know, it might be.
Because it's a monotypic genus, features Polystachya. So is Aphrodite, does that get clonal name?
No, that's the awarded species name.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay,
but you know, the AOS is not always correct.
don't get me going.
Yeah.
Come on, Ron. Don't get me going. And I'm a judge. Next,
What was the temperature on that, particularly?
this actually, will grow in either of my greenhouses. It's not fussy, it does grow in the unheated greenhouse down to 38 degrees. I wouldn't put it past that, I'd bring it in. Friends of mine grow it outdoors in South Florida and mid-Florida, where it's dropped down to 34 degrees, but they have them mounted on palm trees. And the trees are picking up the groundwater that's 68 to 69 degrees, and it gives us a little buffer for the plants. Yes. Questions? Yes, Ron?
Not a question, I just actually just looked up the one yellow, there's 3 species, I didn't know the other 2.
Oh,
That is a validated from the Seychelles. So it's not like.
yeah,
American or Madagascar.
yeah, okay. Yeah, I thought it was valid.
Yeah. I heard
Hey, see, we can't pick on AOS right now.
it.
Sure we can. No, actually, normally I show a slide for AOS because, you know, when you Google something and you look up 7 different references on how to grow a species, there's 7 different answers.
Yeah.
And at least with AOS, with their Orchids A to Z, they've actually sent it to people that actually grow that species, and they correct the misinformation. Or it's kind of like Jay Fall's encyclopedia. If you notify him that he's got something wrong, it's changed the next day. So Jay Fall's really good. There's this book that Mary and Ron something or other wrote. It's not good information.
And it's accurate most of the time.
Any questions? Yes.
You have any tips for like lithophytic, Angraecums like Savoria, like intermediate stuff?
Cerorium is probably the hardest of all the Angraecums to flower. In fact, Fred Hillerman had a Cerorium for 30 years. He had never flowered it. And he was cleaning up the greenhouse and he grew it in granite chunks, okay? That way he got really good drainage. And he moved it out from the greenhouse and put it out on the porch with a couple others. He forgot to bring those plants in, and it snowed that night. And he didn't go out because he didn't feel like walking in the snow to the greenhouse. 3 days later, he goes out, oh shoot, there's the Cerorium out on the porch. The other 2 plants, whatever they were dead. But he moved, well, maybe the Cerorium will live. It's the only time he ever flowered Cerorium. Did you know that story?
You know, it was first, I have a young one, I grew up unheated and an unheated greenhouse in South City, so.
Yeah, but yeah, it needs to get a chill. It comes from very high elevation. It needs excellent drainage. It wants to dry well between watering. So that helps you. Yeah. Yes.
You want to talk about IPA?
Oh, sure. Lynn told me I wanted to talk about IPA on the, what is it, 22nd? 22nd, 23rd, the International Phalaenopsis Alliance is having a symposium in Sacramento at Embassy Suites in Old Town Sacramento. And you can go to IPA.org to register if you want to do the entire event, or if you just want to come up on Saturday. We're doing a 1-day for the 4 speakers on that day for $50. One of our speakers is Peter Su from Su Orchids in Taiwan. Another speaker is Philip Hamilton from Brethren Orchids in Florida. And Philip does all kinds of fantastic novelty breeding. In fact, when I told Mitch that Philip was one of the speakers and that he'd be there on Saturday, Mitch says, I'm going. Philip does some wonderful hybridization in the Phalaenopsis Alliance. And he's a great speaker. And so we gave him 3 sales tables instead of just 2 like the rest of us. But there's vendors. And there's an auction on Saturday where you can pick up some great buys. Very fun, and it's a great event. And so you're all welcome to come up. And it's a great time to visit Old Sacramento. Anything else I need to do? Oh yeah, there's the Sonoma County auction coming up. If you want to drive up to Rohnert Park on Saturday the 16th,
Yes,
Anything else I need to cover?
well, I have a question about repotting, because I always like to be refreshed about your tree.
Actually, in most Angraecum species, there is a latent fungus in the root system. And so plants like Magdalena, Sesquipedale have this reputation of dying when you repot them. Because the stress of repotting them gets that fungus that's latent to go systemic and move through the plant. Very simple thing. After you pot it up, water it in, and then take a whole bottle of fresh hydrogen peroxide, 3%, pour it through the pot. That will stop the fungus from being systemic. Real simple. Oxygen. It's that oxygen being released that kills fungal spores. Nope, leave it. It's just 3 extra molecules of oxygen per 100 being released as you pour it in. And that's what, so used to be able to get 5% hydrogen peroxide. And I would use 5% because the original study where I found out about using hydrogen peroxide as a fungicide, I was visiting the University of Hawaii and looking at research by one of the professors there, and he'd have one of his grad students do a paper, his thesis on why on Phalaenopsis dendrobiums, when they got that really ugly circular leaf spotting fungus, why didn't it kill the plant? Why wasn't it moving into the stem and killing the plant? Turns out the dendrobiums at the abscission layer, the point of it just where it detaches from the plant, at that abscission layer, it creates 5% hydrogen peroxide, killing the fungal hyphae before it could penetrate the plant. So I figured if a plant produced hydrogen peroxide on its own, I could use hydrogen peroxide as a fungicide because cinnamon doesn't work on most of the fungus. It's a desiccant and it doesn't really stop it. And so that's why I used hydrogen peroxide, but it stops it from being systemic.
When you have mounted plants, you change the mount at a particular time?
I learned to change the mount. I had a 300 bulb Sophronitis pedunculata on tree fern. And the tree fern started to go toxic. Tree fern, after about 15, 20 years, it goes through a chain and it becomes toxic to the roots. I lost the 300 bulb plant in 1 week. And I tried the hydrogen peroxide and it didn't work. So it was something that was just toxic. But cork will start to go bad. It starts to break down. And it's really hard to take the roots off, but at some point you really have to.
It seems to affect a white greenhouse plant much more than like if you grew outside mounted, like unheated greenhouses without humidity. The cork lasts a lot longer.
Yeah.
White greenhouse.
Well, it's like Florida. You know how long a teak basket lasts in Florida? Yeah, 3 years. I've got 20-year-old teak baskets in my greenhouse. But in Florida, with their extra humidity, their warm night temperatures, it just rots. So it's all relative.
So my other question was going to be whether you use the hydrogen peroxide on other types of plants besides Angraecum.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like I told you at your lecture, Miltoniopsis. I grow them in Sacramento, and you shouldn't be growing Miltoniopsis in Sacramento. It's too hot. But I like Miltoniopsis, so I grow them. They're not commercially viable to me. It's my own toy. It's my hobby. And so they don't get potted in the springtime like they should. And so we'd get to repotting them in the middle of the summer when it's hottest. And we would notice that about 1/3 of the plants would get this orange fungus that would start at the rear and go through and kill the plant. Miltoniopsis, just like Angraecums, have a non-systemic fungus in the plants, and when you stress them, it becomes systemic. And so once I realized that it was similar to the Angraecums, we would repot them, water them in, and pour hydrogen peroxide through the pot after we watered him in, and we never lost another Miltoniopsis in repotting.
After you run the hydrogen peroxide in, you don't rinse it out.
No,
Okay.
no. Also, it leaches any salt buildup too, because it's pure.
They never dilute.
I don't dilute, 3%. 3% is really dilute. Yeah, and that's fresh. And remember, when you open the bottle, you expose it, it goes down real fast. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Well, let's have a break.
Okay, we'll take a 10-minute break. And now we'll be selling plants back in the back, so please feel free to get your plants.
Hi, good, how are you?
Oh, you need me to unlock my computer?
I don't know. Are you starting it already?
Yeah.
So who's doing worst case?
Who is doing it?
Ron? Ron's gonna be showing. That's okay.
Doing it? What are you also wanting to hire some?
So Ron, so you have, the mic is here.
Mike is here.
And I think, Kay's gonna show.
Right, so this is where you talk there.
Okay. I'll pick this up anyway.
So, and then just click through the slides, say a little bit about each plant.
Okay.
But there's some at the end that are like, Kay has her notes, so Kay, do you want to still do your line?
Show and tell. Buy stuff, buy tickets for the raffle in the meantime, there's lots of merchandise. So, we're starting with Kate. You're gonna be Vanna White tonight. So, right.
You wanna do that, but it's like now, we can do that.
Yeah, with the online one first? Want to do the online one first?
Yeah, let's try that.
Okay.
You know, some of them, not all of them, but me. All right, which button do I use to advance?
Okay, we got those buttons, come on. The arrow is the right one.
Yeah, I just did one and nothing happened.
I'm coming.
That one doesn't work, but this one work, to advance? We're going backwards?
There you go. No,
This is, yeah, but that's, all right. That's to advance, that's, all right, to me, that's backwards. That's
No,
okay,
down.
I don't care.
see, up, down, down.
There you go.
There we go.
Woo.
Okay.
Success.
Okay. First of all, I want to kind of apologize a little bit. We've been doing the virtual show and tell, presenting pictures in the order in which they were submitted to us. And preserving the tradition that Lynn started. And this time Lynn was first to send in her pictures, but the order didn't get done that way. So I'm sorry about that. So we're starting here with Angraecums breve, which is the bird of foxes, little Angraecoid. You can see how long the tail is from the picture of it in her hand. And as she says, it's this one, she didn't say actually, it's from northern Madagascar. And she can grow it outside in Southern California. Judy Zhu gives us her picture of Vanda falcata Nanju Shage. The Vanda falcatas, which you may know better as Neophoenicias, are from Northeast Asia and they're epiphytic. And the falcata means sickle shaped, and you can see that in the flower.
Okay, real quick, that's unusual because it has got 3 spurs. I think special about that form of.
Oh, that one's got 3 spurs.
3 spurs per flower.
Yes, it does. Wow. Here's Jeff Harris's. Vanda Ochon Blue, which is a complex hybrid. Presumably done for the color, which is pretty intense. The vandas are from Southeast Asia. Here's Lynn's Vanda Saxamron spots, which is
Extremely complex.
looks like a cheetah. Which is a, yeah, it is a complex hybrid. Of a species from Southeast Asia. No. Here's Schonorchis Pitami. Which Stuart Maneker grew. It's a miniature. There's about 28 epiphytic species of Schonorchis. They're reed orchids, monopodial, and this particular one is new to the commerce from Vietnam species. Here's Roberta's Schonorchis gensifolia. This is from Borneo, Java, and Sumatra. The gensifolia refers to the reed-like leaves. These can, I know Judy Carney's got one that's probably 10 feet tall right now. If I can really,
5 feet, 5 or 6, 5.
5 or 6 feet. Yeah, they can really make quite a spectacular show. I always think of it as a wisteria orchid. They remind me of wisteria, and they're fragrant too. Here's Dave Hermeyer's Dendrobium Christi Dawn, which is a complex hybrid of 3 different species of Dendrobium. It's a small epiphyte. Stuart Maneker shows us his Dendrobium farmeri, which is from Southeast Asia. It can grow cool to warm. And is a modest sized plant, so it won't take over your greenhouse.
It's got an interesting fact about the 4-sided canes. So it's very got square.
Oh, that one does that too?
Yeah.
Here's Dave Hermeyer's, I changed that. I thought I changed the name. It's actually, it's a Cattleya now. Cattleya crispa. And unicolor refers, I believe, to the color that's inside the lip there. And Dave probably grows this in his unheated greenhouse. And here's another one. I did change these. Again, it's now a Cattleya. It's the same species as the one before. The carnea, usually carnea means flesh colored, and it usually means that there's that color in the lip, which I don't see here. So
I was looking at it's right at the end of the lip, it's really pale. It's on the apex of the lip, it's pale.
okay. Thank you. And here's Lynn's Laelia longifes, soft touch. Again, it's a Cattleya now.
I just want to say, Lynn is probably actually a hybrid. Well, Cattleya longifes has a just pure orange yellow lip. There's no markings, and the shape is quite a bit different. I've seen a number of these longifes that are actually hybrids.
So we can have that big rubber
I could show you the difference. That seems like really distinct. Go pure yellow orange lip with no other color at all. Also, the shape of the flowers is pretty different. So the bulbs are even different than the species there.
Thank you. Okay, so did you change these?
Let's change the
The
order.
names, no,
No,
the names, I
no.
changed them. Well, then this isn't the newest download or something, because I changed the, gave them the proper names.
Oh.
Okay, anyway, Cattleyas are a lot from Brazil, like this one is. Now it won't advance. What did you do? Yeah.
Just need to click on the slide.
What?
Just move the cursor to the slide. Move the cursor to the left.
What cursor?
Click anywhere.
Okay, here's Jeff, Sobralia violaceae, which is named for its color, which is quite nice. I imagine those flowers are probably as big as my hand. And Jeff, are you growing this outside with your cymbidiums the way?
No, this grows in the greenhouse.
Okay.
With the banda. And it's actually smaller than most of Somalia, so it's only like a couple of inches. I mean, this is the shortest lasting. So if it opens in the morning, it's done by me.
Yeah, I think it's probably a small.
Yeah, but I have like, it's blooming, I get 1 or 2 blooms a week.
Here's Lynn's Epidendrum elense, which is named for the place in Ecuador that it comes from. Which is in very wet forest, so it wants to grow warm and humid. Very curly flowers.
Sorry. So that species was discovered, I'm guessing about 20-25 years ago in Ecuador. Eric Christensen and Scully Botanic Garden was there when they found it. They went back to go find more of such a stunning species. The whole area had been deforested. So for all intents and purposes, it's extinct in the wild. They did find a few more plants in another nearby location, but for all intents and purposes, it's a dead end. You need a breeding population. But if you can get these, they're beautiful plants. They can stand 1 meter tall, and inflorescence is ever blooming nice. Every time I've seen Lynn's plant, it's got flowers on it, and the flowers are like 1 inch, almost 2 inches a piece. So they're gorgeous. So
Is her plant big enough to divide?
And we saw it.
I think Marty's raising seedlings. So
Oh, good.
I think so.
Okay, this is my Brassia hippihoppensis, which is named for the place in Ecuador that it comes from, which is Hippihapa. And that is the desert part of Ecuador. This is one of the few desert orchids there are. And this plant, I looked it up. I've had it for 18 years. It's been sitting in a greenhouse window in my house and has never bloomed before.
Did you thread it?
18 years.
And I might not have found it, except I had the windows washed, so I had to move it.
Oh, it's nice where it is now.
Here's Roberta's Zygostates lunata, which, as she says, is from eastern Brazil. It's a warm growing plant. There are about 25 epiphytic species of Zygostates. She shows us another one. This is Alaniana, also from Brazil. These are nice miniatures, as you can see. Lots of flowers, tiny plant.
Not warm growing, they grow outside.
Hi, Roberta.
Hi, Ron.
Okay, it's supposed to be warm growing. So it's
Working so
adaptable.
Just can't read.
Here's Lynn's Anguloa dubia. Dubia means doubtful, which is, I don't know why this is a doubtful Anguloa. The Anguloas are from Colombia. They're mostly yellow. And actually, when I was looking this up, this looks more like Ruckeri, which is the only one with color, but no, okay. I know color isn't a good way to determine species, but so you think dubia is correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're actually called tulip orchids because of the way the flowers
Yeah, they're the ones.
are And then also they're from Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and I think into Bolivia. That, not especially this species, but the group.
Here's Stuart Maneker's Belobellum diorum, the red form. Well, that's really red on the slide. I don't think it's
Yeah.
quite that red in person, but it's a beautiful thing. The flowers are probably maybe an inch long.
So when we're, sorry.
Go ahead.
So, when we're writing the miniature orchid species book, this one, at the last minute, turns out that Tyrone is a different species, that there's actually one called Trong. I can't speak Vietnamese, Tronquetia, Trueyet, so,
Yeah, that's the name of the man that discovered it,
yes, yeah,
Jonathan.
yeah.
And here's Stuart's. Again, this is now a dendrobium, not an, all the Diplocolumbiums, I think, got transferred into dendrobium. This is because of, I'm sorry, I corrected a lot of the spellings on this, and somehow this is the.
Chrysotropis.
Yes.
So actually, this group has, this gene is the former, the section of dendrobium has a group that has 1 day flowers. They last for the whole day, and they close up during the night or maybe in late afternoon. And then this group here, a smaller, will live 4 to 5 days, maybe even a week at a time. The flowers will last that long. So the smaller flower ones, there are small flowered spiring ones. But they are 1 day ones. Actually saw one at 10:45 in the morning, and I got someone's out and told myself to go back and photograph it. Exactly 15 minutes later, and then it collapsed through that. Wow. So,
Yeah, you have to be quick to go.
very exciting. Yeah.
Does it reopen the next day? No, they're gone.
It comes off the bulbs at any time, as long as the pressure drop or temperature drop. I forgot which one it is, but when the storms come here,
Yeah.
and then they have a massive living.
Here's Vincent Pietro Martiri Mascavalia Rothiana, which is, he says, is from Colombia and a cool grower. This is a really nice blooming on his. And it's always nice to know stuff that you can grow outside. Here's Jeff Harris's Mascavalia it's polysticta. And from the West Andes of Peru, and it'll grow cool to warm.
And Jeff, that is a form of Pachyura.
And the polysticta refers to its dots. So that's all right.
It's actually Pachyura. This species gets misidentified often. Polysticta has very thin, red, thin, longer tails. Same group.
Okay, yeah, that's our virtual pronoun. Now we've got a really nice, I'm really surprised. I'm gonna be down.
So we gotta stop.
You want to?
Play to the audience, yeah. We're
We'll
starting,
just get into the cards, I think.
okay.
The selfie can. Jeff can.
Jan, you need to, hieroglyphics. Jan, this brings in this little fly orchid. It's called Trichoceros. This one is probably Moralis. It's not a very large group of orchids, but they're highly confused taxonomically, so we think it's Moralis. It's
We don't have the camera on. Oh, can you switch it so we can see it?
No.
wait a second.
Leave the light. Leave the light on, you can't use it. Need to leave the lights on up here, please.
Somebody pin that light.
Yes, folks at home, look at Jeff. His, you have to pin his video because he's the one that's showing the flowers. Look at your gallery of people and find Jeff.
Good. All right, let me know when you got it hooked up. Are we all ready?
You good?
Okay, so this group is known as fly orchids. They mimic a female fly. The male fly tries to mate with the flower or fight with another male. But one of those two theories is how flowers get pollinated. We think that's Morales, Lucasaurus Morales. How about just the card? It also brings in this band of Bruce's Evelyn
What it says.
by Mary Moats. So it's an unnamed hybrid, unnamed cross.
That has a wonderful fragrance too. You can come in and out.
All right, the next one we're gonna do is this one. This is Jeff Harris. Only you ready to answer who you are. I saw Jeff. There's Jeff back there. Another Jeff Harris brings in this Dendrobium lawsia. It's a New Guinean species. It comes in a variety of colors, purplish, pink, and white bicolor form. It comes in a pure red, pure orange, light and dark orange bicolor, and I think there's another. Yeah, there's another color form or two. They last for a few weeks, or some relatives that last a lot longer. But anyway, it's a beautiful species, and all of them worth collecting. This is another Trichoceros Morales. It's brought in by Veronica. Victoria, never actually said your name. Kolotowska?
Yeah, Victoria.
Victoria Kolotowska brings in another Trichoceros Morales, which is the same species. They are blooming right now. I have several different ones all blooming at the same time. This is Encyclia Lata. This is brought in by Jan also. This one has a really nice fragrance. Jan, have you noticed that in the daytime? I think it's pretty widespread. It's Mexican through Central America, I believe. It's quite widespread. No, not Florida.
So one of these in Belize.
Yeah,
How
but it smells wonderful. I never grown one thing. I've smelled it just recently down at the Brookside Orchid.
Thank you.
Jan also brings in this one. This is actually, it's labeled Tingabarinum, but it's actually a color form of Pectin veneris, Pectin veneris. Comes in a white form, orange form, a yellow form. Josh Ewens brings in this Platystelli repens, actually. Where's Josh? Yeah, it's repens, actually. Okay, yeah.
I saw that on the Orchids.
Yeah, I think you might have got a piece from somebody I know, and then when they got awarded, they realized what it really was. So repens means creeping or crawling.
Huh.
But it's a species that's really nice, really small blooms. It blooms pretty much year round, I would guess. So Josh also brings in this Bolophyllum triorostellum. This is triorostella. It's a New Guinean species. It's polymorphic, meaning it has a whole bunch of different varieties, different shapes and sizes. But evidently it's just a big species group. Brianna Rochi brings in Papillum petula captivating. I've heard that one before, but it's very dark.
Yeah, it really is.
Wow.
Really helps to focus on what I
Well,
Yeah.
let's not pick up the hang on. Because we can see it 8 feet tall over here.
Wow.
I got one from our speaker from, in June, I forgot her name now.
Oh, Andrea.
Teresa Hill. Yeah, Teresa, thank you.
Yeah, that one.
So this is Dan's also, and this is a Brasso Cattleya, no ID, and I'm no good to help you. There's one called Mackay, which is pretty common, which is would be a Guardian Indiana by Brassowal and the Desert. Pretty common.
purple, isn't it?
They can quite variable, yeah.
I'd like to know what that white one is.
Yeah. Dan brings in this Trichocentra microchilum. This is one of the ones that used to be a long time ago, it was an Oncidium. It's the group that was formerly Trichocentra, or just Trichocentra, was little mule deer type plants. This genus now includes the mule deers, the mule deers with bulbs. Mule deers usually don't really have, they have a very reduced tiny bulb. Now they have ones with actual distinctive bulb, as well as the rat tail species are all.
It's changed from rusty red to green. They're green when they're new, and then they change to rusty red, and they're they're hard, very hard leaves.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
a rat.
And also really brittle to use venom the wrong way too, that will snap. Dan brings in a dendrobium. It's Eobi slash, is that?
Purple flash, I know.
Eobi. Yeah, I'm really good with hybrids. Yeah.
There's no card for this, it's
It got
kind of
moved.
Oh, yeah, it's over, I saw it. Yeah, was that Mendenhall, I think?
It's Mendenhall, Hilda's.
Oh, yeah, so Susan Anderson, brings the Psychopolis Mendenhall. Sorry, Hildos.
No.
Yeah, I can't say what I saw first. Fred Anderson, where's Fred? Fred, thank you. He brings in this Phragmipedium Eric Young. So for those of you who are just beginning with orchids, because we always have, which is great, we always have people that are just kind of starting. Lady super orchids are a subfamily of orchids in the orchid family. There's 5 subfamilies. Most of them are in one called Epidendroideae, but the lady slippers are all in one group to themselves. And so Phragmipedium are the new world, tropical new world lady super orchids. Capipedum, the tropical Asian Superpedium are around the world in the northern hemisphere. Extrapedium from Mexico, and there's Selenopedium, which is also a new world, and they're not commonly grown. Rhiannon Croce brings in this maxillary Schunkiana, which is very cool because they were looking for a black orchid. It's not as black as you get, blacker than the black orchid they used to call it. So, it's actually really extremely dark, but it just basically looks black.
Where did that come
Brazil.
Brazil.
They go to it's pretty bright lighting, but like you. Bright light.
Rhiannon brings in this half gold dollar, which is, I think it's a, or maybe not, because I, oh,
Tag there. It's in the tag, I can't remember. I got that one also from Teresa.
Primulina by Armeniaca. Mentioning Primulina is a group, a group that has consecutive flowers, so they keep blooming.
Yeah.
And Armeniaca is a single or one, maybe occasionally a second flower. And the hybrid between the two looks like it's got more buds coming.
Yeah.
So got that. That's pretty cool.
I was pretty excited because both of the ones I got from her bloomed within the last 3 months.
Nice.
So.
So the big copy development in the back is friends also. This is Pat Ardell Marlin.
That's actually Dick Hess's flower. I'm just really custodian.
Okay.
So it's Dick Hess from Orange County Orchid Society.
Okay, cool. So he's across the Berenice, which is a primary of 2 of the multifloral species, I believe, by Dale and Nadia, which is a relative to the Armeniacum. It's a fragrant species in Vietnam. Jonathan Koch brings in this Cattleya Sandra spots, the clone or the individual's name is Pink Sprinkle, and then HCC from the American. So HCC being a high class certificate.
Highly commended.
Highly commended. Those are important to me too.
It's third place.
Right. This is another Capipella. This is actually just opening. It's going to do it. This is called Hungdawan's Chin, and Hungdawan is so. For those of you who saw, not open all the way, it'll open more. For those of you who saw Wen Shake Burger's name earlier, this is her husband made this cross before he passed away. Angraecums Mountains is the mountain range in Sichuan province they have, and I don't know what Chin is, but she's coming in October, I believe. I don't know if she's. Yeah, I don't know if she's gonna speak, but she's bringing plants, so that sales, that pre-order thing is real important now to do it if you want to get anything from her. So interestingly, the Sologeny group is a old world, so tropical Asian genus of orchids, and they recently put this group, the Dendrocolum, in it, whether people, they don't like the idea, so whatever, we're gonna call it Dendrocolum filiforme. Did I say his name? Did I say what that was?
No, you didn't.
Who's my name?
Jeff Harris.
Jeff Harris. Jeff Harris, this Jeff Harris.
This Jeff.
Another Jeff Harris brings in this Jeff Harris brings in another plant, a Cattleya xanthina. This is a member, Kay showed the Cattleya crispa earlier. It's really the Purpurata tenebrosa, Perenniae, fidolensis, and
Former ladies.
former Laelias. Jeff also brings in this Brassavola or Brassavola. This was labeled cucullata or named cucullata for a long time. Recently found that cucullata was a Caribbean species thrown in their variant specimen, and this has now been renamed appendiculata. Jeff brings a species of Phalaenopsis. It's the thing that she's done a lot of process to get the continuous growth on the inflorescence for a very long time, lots of flowers, branch inflorescences. And this is a species found in the Philippines as well as Taiwan, I believe. So anyway, it's a really great species, comes in a whole bunch of forms. So they're worth collecting all of them. That's a very happy plant too. Jeff brings in this Paphiophyllum superbiens. This is, I was saying, that this is the old world genus of tropical lady slippers. It's great, with all the warts on it. It's only become more recently available for collections. It was quite a rare species for a long time, and I guess through Orchid Zone or other breeders have actually made it more available. Jeff brings in Oberonia rufilabris. This is a cute little Philippine species, I believe, and it's a genus of it's got a great little fan-shaped plant with microscopic flowers. All those little, like, you can see little things sticking out. Those are individual flowers. It's quite a widespread genus. They're in eastern Australia, throughout the tropics of Asia. There's some in Africa. There's one that reaches Madagascar. So it's quite a wide. There's some in I have one from Japan, so it's quite a widespread genus, and they're all collectible. Some are just quite large, but most of them are fairly small plants and very attractive.
There's probably over 100 flowers on each.
Yeah. So Judy Carney brings in Phalaenopsis bellina or bellina. This is a Bornean species that was considered the same as Violacea from Malaysia, and they did a DNA thing, and so they're quite different. This one is usually told by the having a lot of green in it, but with basically purplish thighs, like inner sides of the petals are dark colored. Inner part of the segment.
I'm thinking we're turning the other way.
Checking on the audience.
I don't need it now. This one's very. Look at the flowers on
So
there.
Judy also brings in the Dendrobium bracteose, and this is a New Guinea species. This is not an albino form, it's actually a white form, because the lip is orange, and albino would not have an orange lip, but it comes in a pink form with an orange lip too. And what's cool about this is it blooms typically on older bulbs where the leaves are gone deciduous, the leaves have dropped, and it blooms. It can bloom anywhere along the nodes. Every section of the cane, there's dormant eyes, whether it be for growth or for flowering. So these are called nodes. They're like dormant eyes on a potato, they're all over the potato. These have nodes around each of these sections, and that's where they'll bloom from. And these flowers will last from New Guinea. These flowers will last quite easily 3 months.
Can it
Really?
I think it can. I think it can.
Here's another beauty from Judy.
A beauty for Judy. Hey, beauty for Judy. Brings in a Catacedum hybrid. This is a Donald Wise amber, which is a complex hybrid, I assume, with a species called Catacedum pileatum, variety of Imperiale, with the individual's name of SVO or Sunset Valley Orchids blood. So these only last in perfection for a week to 10 days. They start folding back and doing things, and the leaves after the bulbs are made, they'll they'll drop, they will go deciduous. And as
Do that.
Alan said earlier, they will attract spider mites on the leaves, as the leaves dry. This is a cool epidendrum. So if you think about the group called the Lalei, which includes encyclias, cattleyas, epidendrums, brassivolas, they all have what's called a terminal inflorescence. They make a bulb, and out on top of the bulb comes the flower set. That's almost invariable in the whole group of several hundred species. This little epidendrum, it's quite a different one because it makes a bulb, and the canes come out of the flower spikes come out of the side of the base of the bulb. So it's very unusual. There's only 2 cattleyas, a few epidendrums, and a genus called Alemania. That's all I know of for that whole alliance of actually many hundreds of species where they'll bloom off of a side growth, off of a completed bulb. And this is called Epidendrum laterale, meaning like lateral and off to the sides. Is this your plant?
Yeah.
This is Koch's plant here. Don Nadler brings in the Angraecum. Who's Don? Hi, Don. So this is the Angraecum sesquipedale, but I think it's actually a hybrid called Longy Scott. I'm not, yeah. Would that make sense to you? Yeah. Yeah, because Longy Calcar by Scottiana, so. It's been a really successful hybrid though. A lot of people grow it and really love it. Kay Klum brings in a little Stelis called Adriane. Should have blood red flowers. Yeah, and it's you know, most people go.
It's one of the stelas where you can actually.
It's got
see the
style.
flowers.
It's got style.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's about 800 species of people that go, oh yeah, that's a Stella. Yeah, that's a Stella.
Well, you do that all the time.
I do that, but I'm not the only one. Here you go. But it's a huge genus, and a lot of them are very similar. There's no real good works on like all of them, so you don't really have anything to go on to
Flowers on the bottom. And
to actually
little
learn
round
what they are.
flowers. I can't find it. That's okay.
Yeah, come looking first.
Yeah. Here's. Lynn's.
So Lynn Merle brings right here, brings in this Dendrocolum magnum. I want to say it's called something else. It was changed to magnum, or it was?
I don't know. Well, it's not an Angraecum.
Well, that's true. But anyway, it smells really bad, right?
It smells must be so strong.
Anyway, I've often seen them with flies' heads buried into the flower. And I'm not the only one who thinks so. There's one that smells so bad. I have it too, and it smells so putrid to me. I can't stand it. Susan Anderson brings in this cute little epidendrum from Mexico called Longicali. And I know a little story about that, but we won't share it with everybody. But she got it for me a long time ago, so it's very cute.
Share.
Well, a little piece found its way into my suitcase on the trip to Mexico. It's a little tiny
Just
thing.
got in, the suitcase was open.
I still have wall scribbles in the whole thing. You know?
It's in my pocket.
I have books I've written. I'm not supposed to be saying that kind of shit. Just keep your stuff. So Susan brings in this cute little. So Alan talked about Angraecums earlier, and so it wasn't really clearly said that there are many. I guess the vast majority of them are from Madagascar, or a huge number from Madagascar. But tropical Africa has a whole bunch of species, and this Certorchis is a tropical African Angraecoid called. This genus is Certorchis cratermissa. But what was not mentioned, although Alan alluded to it, Dendrophylax, is there's a few ones in the New World. So the ghost orchid is actually an Angraecoid from the southern 2 counties of Florida. So there are Angraecoids from the New World, but the vast majority of them are tropical African and Madagascar.
Another Dendrophylax.
Yeah, and a couple other genera. Yeah, Campylocentrum.
Okay, that's a table.
Good job.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.